Coming up, the Brooklyn Nets never met a close game they didn't want to be a part of. We break down the NBA Cup undefeated Nets. They get by on the Chicago Bulls on grit, on effort, on full team energy, and a couple of clutch buckets. We dive in next.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. It is the Locked On Nets podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets, every single day and live for those sweet, sweet post games. Over there's Doug Norrie. I'm Adam Arbrecht. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. We're free on all those platforms. And Douglas, I demand wins. I demand a team that doesn't back down to a neon red court that freaks your mind out. Nets taking down Chicago on the road, 109-107. The late game sequences that finally go Brooklyn's way.
They overcome an atrocity of the court to take down a massive win. This team is fun, man. Point stop. That we have a fun team on our hands. The great hope here was that the Nets were going to punch above their weight all season because they had guys that were looking for you either have something to prove, someone ready to make a leap, guys making career turns. Whatever. Everyone's, someone just got a contract and it's time to prove it. Like everyone kind of had a story on this team around why they needed to really ball out this season and play be better than the sum of their parts. And they've just done that and more. Like you said, I'm just going to steal your line. You said this before the podcast started, but I'm just going to, so Adam said this, the Nets could easily be undefeated right now.
That's right.
they're 3-2. And Adam pointed out before the show started. He's like, they could be 5-0, right? They're a Luka heave and a Mitchell dagger 3, basically, away from being undefeated right now. This is another legit win.
Yep. They
beat a decent team in the Bulls. This is just a good team. And no Claxton, no Cam Johnson. And they're just going out and winning the minutes, and they're doing every little thing that they need to do to win these teams. This is everyone's popping off here on YouTube. You should be this is a fun team to watch, and I am just so juiced for the rest of the season.
Yeah, these are like your dream scenarios being answered. I want to see a team that can compete. I want to see a team that can be in games. I want to see a team. It's funny. We're talking about these games now, a 3-game winning streak, by the way, for the Brooklyn Nets, just 5 games into the season, who, as you said, without Cameron Johnson, without Nicholas Claxton, this isn't even the complete roster. Spencer Dinwiddie steps back onto the court after missing a couple of games as well tonight. This was excellent by every single measurable possible. I want to get into some of the key players. We're going to talk Dorian Finney-Smith here. He was absolutely phenomenal in this game. Completely screwed me on my parlay. That's neither here nor there. But the late game sequences, I think that a really great way to encapsulate this game is that it involves a Ben Simmons assisted triple from Cam Thomas. It involves a baseline drive from Mikal Bridges on a monster power jam. It involves a Dorian Finney-Smith 3 after being electric in the first half and then really having to dedicate a lot of defensive energy in the second half with Vucevic and others underneath that basket. It was a team effort. I love the fact that every single game, you're rarely coming out of it saying, well, thank goodness for player X. Even with Cam Thomas and those big scoring performances, now as we've seen him the last couple of games come back down to earth a little bit more, you can see that the complement of players are still there that can go get you wins.
Yeah, just look down the box score and you'll see, and it'll tell the tale. Actually, I was saying to you before the podcast started that this is a game I just didn't really box score watch at all. I actually came out of it, watched the whole game without really just looking at any of the stats. And I was like, to the end, I was like, I wonder who the leading scorer was. I know this sounds like this is not the best analyst, but sometimes I think these are good ways to watch the game, because when you're box score watching, it can maybe tell you something different than is actually happening. Mm-hmm. But it actually played out the way that I thought it was, which was there was no real hero here. If you look down the scoring, DFS was the leading scorer with 21. Mikal drops 20. Cam was 17. Lonnie Walker off the bench with 11. Dinwiddie 10. Right, at least a very even distribution of scoring, and considering the minutes, a pretty even distribution of shots as well.
Yeah.
And when you can do that, sometimes in the NBA, that doesn't work. There are certain teams that you would not want this to happen, right? If you are, just really any team with a superstar, you don't really want this. But with Durant, let's say, like you shouldn't have even shot distributions when Kevin Durant's on your team. It just like doesn't make any sense. Kyrie Irving, right? But this team, it starts to make a lot of sense when every guy's taking sort of the best shots available for them.
Mm-hmm.
And when that's the case, you are going to get like stat lines like you saw tonight, which is, everyone kind of chipped in on the time that they spent on the court. No one took bad shots. I mean, a couple late shot clock heaves, but for the most part, I thought their shot selection was really good. They missed a couple kind of easy bunnies that maybe would have put this game out, a little bit away a little bit earlier, right? Because they missed a couple shots at the rim. Can't complain too much. But really, sometimes these team effort things, it's hard. It doesn't always bear out in the stats because you just are, the NBA is full of specialists at this point. Like when you are on certain teams, it's like, hey, you're a 3-and-D specialist, you're a rebounding specialist. Like these are the things you specialize in. That's don't really have any specialists, but a recurring theme that we've talked about over and over is that they have guys who they do lots of things really well.
Yeah.
Very few guys do anything great on this team, but they all do multiple things well. And when that happens, you get situations like this where you're just going to go out and play team efforts and win games. And they're pushing toward winning a lot more games, I think, that we've maybe thought they were going to.
Yeah, you mentioned there the balance, right? So 18 for Thomas in terms of shots, 17 for Bridges, 14 for Finney-Smith in the starting rotation. But then you get Lonnie Walker and Royce O'Neal, both with 10 attempts coming off the bench, and then multiple players in that 8, 7, and 9 range, including Spencer Dinwiddie that got back onto the court here for 31 minutes and 31 critical minutes, played to a plus 15 in the stat sheet as well. To your point, credit to Jacques Vaughn in this game as well, just from a rotation standpoint. Listen, it's all well and good to say you don't want to play guys too much over the 30-minute mark until you start losing guys to injuries. And we saw them go big minutes in the last game against Miami. You need it. It's Day'Ron Sharpe, Dennis Smith Jr., Lonnie Walker, 15, 16, and 16 minutes coming off the bench behind Royce O'Neal. Those players mattered. The 2 triples from Dennis Smith Jr. and Lonnie Walker combined mattered. Lonnie Walker getting in the paint mattered. All these things. We're going to get into it a little bit deeper here. But the balance that this team plays with is really impressive. And I'll note here, for a team that came into a matchup where the size could have played a factor here, where Vucevic could have been a problem for you, this is, again, Dorian Finney-Smith led the team in scoring. To your point, the eye test also tells you that he was maybe the most important player on this court here. Because when you look at Vucevic on a 13-point night, had the 1 triple when he finally took that only shot he took from beyond the arc, I thought, oh God, no, don't let him remember that this is something he can do. 13 rebounds in this game for him. But I thought the Nets did a tremendous job in the second half, especially grinding through a very difficult third quarter and then finding a way to get themselves the win. Let's talk about some of these great performances in behind the starters, talk about some of those awesome defensive sequences as well, coming up here in just 1 second as we are live over on YouTube as well. All right, so I said it there, 109-107, man. Did you believe, Doug? Did you believe as this one was winding down and the Bulls were trying to extend this game and willing to take some fouls? Did you believe the Nets were going to pull this win out?
Yeah. I think we've seen them enough come down to these close games where they've been in it to the end. I think that like when you are in every game, you earn the right to like sort of have the benefit of the doubt that you can at least be there for like the end, right? Like, and I know people have sort of dragged Jacques Vaughn early in the season for like some coaching moves. I don't know how you could ever drag a team that, again, go back and reformulate your expectations. When we talked about this early in the season, we went through their first 10 games and we looked down the schedule and we're like, hey, what's the schedule? What's the record going to be after 10 games? Right. And it was like, you kind of had to like tell yourself a story for 5-5, right? Like, because there were some tough games in here. And I know most people, I think that's sort of where they landed, like the best case scenario. The reason I believe that they could win is because I've seen them close this out before. And I think he's pushed the right buttons at times, and they clearly have guys that work well together and all sort of have confidence. So I was feeling pretty confident here too. And I'm gaining confidence also, or not gaining confidence. I'm continually confident in sort of some of the defensive stuff that they're doing. Mm-hmm. And so they just have the personnel to lock in on late possession stuff, like, Levine and DeRozan. Levine was having his way at times here. That's okay. Like, that kind of stuff will happen. But when it comes down to the end, they made some really nice defensive stands. And even Cam Thomas had like a couple good defensive stands during this game, at least two where he stood up his primary assignment and was able, well, I think one, he had a block Like we're just seeing even that out of him, where he's able to get down and stop some of these guys too. And I think when that's happening, between that and knowing that there's like end of shot clock guys on their own team, like in Bridges and Thomas, and I even Dinwiddie to some degree. Yeah, they have a recipe for success late game. So yeah, I felt pretty confident coming down to the end here.
It's funny, Cam Thomas, he is the good guy to look at for that, because I think we talked about him sometimes looking lost early in the season here, and we know he's not going to be a defensive stalwart for this team. But it does seem like by every game goes by, the connectivity on the defensive end, because there were some sequences here when I watched, man, I'm going to say it was Spencer Dinwiddie, but I agree with you on Cam too. Spencer Dinwiddie essentially bailed out on his coverage at the top of the key, rolled underneath a screen, and was sprinting to the corner, because simultaneously it was Dorian Finney-Smith coming to the top to pick up Vucevic, but it was because there was an understanding, like, this is my assignment, this is my space, and the trust of your teammate getting over where he needs to be. We didn't even see that in games 1 and 2 necessarily. We saw that in this game. I think we saw a bit of that in the Miami game as well. So the system that Vaughn is running is 100% to me. You can see it coming into form here. And I'll add too, we talked about this before we started. There was a stretch here when it was Dennis Smith Jr., Day'Ron Sharpe, that right there already, I'm like, this is a bad idea. And
go ahead, because I want to say, I was actually just going to bring this up, but go ahead with your first comment, because I want to bring up that pairing specifically. Go ahead.
Yeah, so those two guys are out on the floor together, along with, I think Spencer Dinwiddie's out there at the time. It's Royce O'Neal as well. I don't think it's Dorian Finney-Smith at that point. I'll have to go back and check, but I remember when they got on the court here, I was thinking, well, this is a problem, because the Nets were down coming out, they're down coming out of the break. You're in the third quarter, and you're thinking, you need the firepower here, and you have non-shooters a lot on this floor. And guess what? That defensive unit grinded it out on that one end, and also had some successful plays on the offensive end as well. And it was like, listen, this is what you and I always talk about this. On paper, I don't think this is going to work. I think it's a bad idea, but I need to let the results inform how I think about it. It worked. And that's another successful decision-making, process, by Jacque Vaughn and this coaching staff to say, hey, maybe we got to grind Chicago down a little bit here, give our starters a rest, give our offense a bit of a rest, and then we'll come in ready to fire and get ourselves back in the lead.
Yeah, that pairing specifically, the DSJ and Day'Ron Sharpe pairing is specific, and it's actually one of the main reasons I think that Dennis Smith is on the team and getting minutes is because Day'Ron's like the one guy that you can't switch everything with on defense, and Dennis Smith Jr. is like the one guy who can fight over screens. And I mean, not the one guy, but he's the best on the team at doing it. So when those guys are paired together, it's not going to look pretty sometimes offensively, right? And DSJ is a total roller coaster on the offensive end, but on defense specifically, that pairing makes a lot of sense. Like he's able to hide Sharpe. He's able to hide Sharpe to not have to come to the level of the screen. And when he doesn't have to do that, he can do what he does best, which is sort of rim protect and just kind of clog the lane. You need a guy, you need a point of attack defender that can get over those screens or come under and close quick enough. I mean, he goes over most of them, but he can go be able to close quick enough on the ball handler, and DSJ can do it. And I know something like what you said, it's like, hey, aesthetically, it's kind of rough to look at times, but that is very specifically why those two are paired together. Like 1-to-1, because you need one to be able to the other guy to function. Because when you don't have it, we see what happened in the preseason, which is like they went on their screens and just got completely smoked by like Israeli club teams, right?
right. Which, by the way, though, if Day'Ron's going to be on this roster, if he's going to have minutes, if Dennis Smith Jr. is going to carve out a role for himself, you need to find these pairings that can work well together. I'll also note just on Day'Ron, there was the classic Spencer Dinwiddie lob when Day'Ron was like working through 3 defenders in the lane. I thought, oh, come on, Spence, like don't leave Day'Ron. It was like to the fingertips of Day'Ron Sharpe for him to glide through just over top of Drummond trying to come over. I was like, even that, when those things connect, you go, oh, we got something special going, boys. Because normally,
we're gonna win.
Yeah, exactly. When did you know the Brooklyn Nets would win this game? When Spencer Dinwiddie connected on a fingertip alley-oop to Day'Ron Sharpe.
It was a perfect lob. It was where only Day'Ron could get it. And I know it's so funny too, because like the things that drive Nets fans over the years, last year or so, is like the Dinwiddie lobs. Nets fans lost years off their life watching these at times. But those have like it sort of improved some of that timing, and maybe that's an off season to work or just more time on the court together. But even the timing of those lobs when they've been able to do it, it was really nice to have Dinwiddie back in the lineup here. It's very clear and we talked about this on a previous episode, it's very clear why they need him.
Mhm.
He's a really, really important player for them because
9
they just
assists
need.
tonight.
What's that?
9 assists tonight.
Yeah, well, he's a primary. He can be a primary ball handler. He's a great secondary ball handler if you have him out there. And they really have needed that at times to settle the offense down, to run high pick and roll. They really don't have any other guys that can do it in a consistent manner. And just having him as a steadying presence, like that is kind of what he is on the court. Like he doesn't get, sometimes he takes some bad shots, but like whatever. I don't know, like that's just going to be the nature of the game. I think he is very clear. Tonight was a good example of the guys to miss. Like he's a rough one to miss out of this particular group of Nets guys, just because their guard play doesn't have much in the way of just like this kind of like pick and roll ball creator and who's also okay playing off ball if he needs to. And that's sometimes like not the easiest thing to find in the NBA.
And that's what we talk about him being that bridge, right? If he's in the starting unit with Ben Simmons, play off ball, let Ben Simmons orchestrate. Yes. In this game, when there were the sequences, when there were the stretches, when Ben Simmons was off the floor, and you don't have a lot of ball handlers, as you said, it needed to be Spencer Dinwiddie. So you had to slide him over and say, you're going to play with some of the others because we need you to dictate terms. And I'll encapsulate his game. 31 minutes, 4 of 7, 2 of 4 from deep, the 3 rebounds, the 9 assists, the 2 steals. Listen, to think about a player like him, I think in a game like this, or these past couple of games, had he been fully healthy, it'd be easy in some of these stretches to go, is your favorite phrase. Yeah. We're all equal heel, but my turn now, right? It'd be very easy for us to look down this box score and see 13 or 14 or 15 shot attempts from Spencer Dinwiddie, and you wouldn't even scoff at that. You'd say he'd be fully justified. But it's really good to see that he is looking around the court and saying, yeah, I can reward these players that are around me, the Dorian Finney-Smiths of the world, right? Spencer Dinwiddie had the fewest shots in the starting rotation, and he had less shots than 3 guys coming off the bench. That's a guy that I think is showing an awareness of where he can be best utilized on a game-to-game basis. In a second,
and well, real quick, I'll say one more thing about Spencer too. And it's like what he offers the Nets too that they don't really have when he's not on the court is like a strong side corner, a 3-point shooter. Because when you're on the strong side, you can act like as a bailout baseline threat too. Like and they just don't have that when he's not on the court either. So even just having him around as a threat, because like the defender has to stay connected to him, even if he just goes into the corner, because he can actually put it on the deck and get to the rim also. It's just like those things matter, especially for this team that requires every little bit of spacing that it can get. So him standing strong side, anyway, just something to look out for, that like how he helps even when he's like not dribbling the ball.
Yep, let's walk down the bench scoring here as well. Guys that did it in different ways than maybe we anticipated. And listen, no Trendon Watford, yet it wasn't a problem. We continue the conversation around the Brooklyn Nets win in Chicago in season tournament, coming up here in just 1 second. All right, Doug, if I asked you the question, when did the Nets achieve an above 500 record last season? How many games into the year?
Oh, well, they fired Nash. It was a long time. It was a while, right? Because they started what, like like what month? You mean like what month?
No. How many games? How many games did it take for them to be above 500?
13?
23. The 23rd game of last season to get above 500 per Nets PR. The Nets did it in game number 5 this year. Damn the Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving era of the Brooklyn Nets organization. That is, I mean, that to me just not even just like, doesn't that boggle your brain? Like, how could
I knew it was bad because they fired Nash early on, and then there was the Kyrie thing. Like but then they went on the crazy run.
Yep.
Because it's like, and they were awesome, and then they everyone asked for the trade. I don't want to. So last season was crazy.
Like, I know, just nuts.
If you ran that through the simulation, they were like, "What'd you do? Like you've cranked the volatility up to 100? Like you just like just like a little too crazy."
But yeah, so I just thought that was a really good note here for this team, and I think if we had taken an over under of when would this team be above 500 this year, with the way the first 10 games look and the way the schedule is, right? Like you might have been saying, hey, it could take us 10 to 15 games maybe to get above that. It could take a while to get above 500. So really impressive that they've done that. And it's a 3-game road win streak for them as well. So they've played away from Barclays here much to start the season and still gotten the job done. Inside of this game then too, Lonnie Walker, he comes in. It's like this guy doesn't even know what a 3-point shot is. It did not look pretty from Lonnie. He did open up the bank one time, and I think he probably called it. Andre Drummond suggested that he didn't, but I believe that he said, I'm going to go heavy bank on this one. But Lonnie showed you where his value also lies too. I think playing on a high-level team like the Lakers, that helps you in high-intensity situations. But he has the speed and quickness to take guys off the dribble and get at the basket. That's where he made his bread and butter tonight. Off the bench, 5 of 10 from the field, just 1 of 4 from deep, gave you 11 points, did the job in 16 minutes. Somebody had to give you a little bit of the spark there because Royce O'Neal was just 3 of 9 from beyond the arc, and he was doing a lot of his work. Likewise, give Spencer Dinwiddie credit. Whoops. There's old facilitator Royce O'Neal with 8 assists in this game and 5 rebounds. I thought he was doing a lot of the work on the defensive end to start here. So there's like a division of labor going on in this game, I thought.
What do you think Lonnie Walker's plus minus is for this season? He's played. Oh shoot! I just had it in front of me. I don't know. I can't find the
trivia.
Oh no, he's played 91. He's played 91 minutes. What do you think his plus minus is?
Plus 20. I'm going to go big
plus,
here. I think.
Well, you went big and you're off by half. Plus 43. He's plus 43 in his 90 minutes.
An animal.
Like they've just crushed his minutes. That includes tonight's game. He's been amazing. He looks like he's shot out of a cannon. He's actually like, what I was thinking of? He's like Edmund Sumner. If like Edmund Sumner, is that what you're going to say? Like if Edmund Sumner could slow himself down, like, and just had a soft touch. Exactly. Because like Sumner looks like he was shot out of a cannon too. And then he'd get like close to the rim and it was like nothing could catch up. Like he couldn't catch his ball handling skills up to like how fast he was. Lonnie actually has this like sort of what seems like the similar speed and the actual ability to finish and shoot the three. He's been amazing. If he keeps playing like this, he's going to be in they're not going to probably do it because it's like probably not a big enough name. He could probably be in the contention for 6th man of the year. Cam Thomas isn't going to qualify because he's going to start now probably. But like, but he could be like, he might end up putting up crazy numbers because he's played 4 games, 4 of the 5 games. He's scored 100 and how many points? I'm looking at the totals anyway. Plus 43. That's all you got to know. He's plus 43, plus 43 in the season. The next closest guy is Dron at plus 32, and then down to Dinwiddie at plus 23. Like he's just been amazing.
Yeah, he's giving you 11, 17, 19, and 14 over the 4 games that he's played this season for the Brooklyn Nets. He didn't play the opener against the Cavs. Got into the game since then. He's been phenomenal. The 3-point shooting outside the last 2 games. Actually, this is a good thing. The last 2 games, he started 7 of 13 in the first 2 games against Dallas and against Charlotte. Last 2 games, a combined 2 of 8 from beyond the arc, and yet is still giving you plus performances, giving you 17, giving you 11. That's the kind of player you need. Because the one thing I think we talk about is, yes, the Nets need the 3-point shot. They need it to go down. It's going to be such a big part of what they do. But they also need guys that can do something else when those shots don't fall, because otherwise this offense could crumble. So, no, Lonnie's been incredible. And I think that, you and I, we acknowledged this in the offseason, but still didn't fully commit to it. We said, boy, we haven't really talked a lot about Lonnie Walker. Are we just overlooking him because you kind of know what he is and he'll be there on the bench and we'll see what happens? But now, through these first 4 games, because of injuries and needing guys to step up, you can make a very strong case that he's higher on that pecking order there coming off the bench than we would have thought, at least initially coming into the year.
Yeah, it's always rough with these ones too. It's like, I didn't play in the first game, so not a great look for Vaughn because he's been so good, but like whatever. He's playing now, so I can't exactly go crazy about it. He did feel like he was sort of the missing piece. I did feel like during the offseason, that was more around like where are we going to find the minutes? Because this was a presented problem for the Nets going into the season. It was not so much that we didn't like players. It was just like if you just look at the breakdown of where the minutes are going to go, you just start running out really fast at 240. Yeah, and to some degree, this is not a good thing. But Cam Johnson being out of the lineup, and to some degree Claxton too, like they just vacated 60 minutes like right there of guys of projected minutes. And so it just gives these other guys opportunity. So I'm not sure, because Cameron Johnson and Claxton were playing, like I'm not sure how much run these guys would have seen. It probably wouldn't have made sense, right? That's just you got to play those guys. Those guys are really, really good players. The fact that it's going to be an interesting problem to have when those guys are back, because the Nets just have a lot of guys that should continue to play. Yeah. And Walker is clearly one of them. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Again, like we're probably a little bit away from that because these guys aren't like Claxton doesn't look like he's going to play Saturday, and Cameron Johnson doesn't seem like he's all that close to returning. But every guy that's stepped on the court this season for the Nets has shown that he should play. Right?
Yeah.
If you played for the Nets this season, in some shape or form, you should continue to play. It's probably going to be problematic later on, but for right now, it's not the worst thing in the world.
I'm going to tell you some other things that make this win really impressive as well before we get out the door here. The Nets rarely, in different iterations and even this season, rarely outshoot the opposition. But the Nets got up 7 more shot attempts than the Chicago Bulls in this game. Now, they were outshot from the field 48-46. They were basically even when it comes to three-pointers, but how about 45 three-point attempts? That's how you do it. 18 going down on 40. How many free throws this team have, Doug? Do you know off the top of your head?
How many free throws tonight? I didn't even look. Couldn't have been many.
5. I won't
10.
even bother
teasing
teasing you with it. 5.
Yeah, I was gonna say 10.
And that's with Mikal Bridges going to the line late in this game as they tried to get their Chicago extend this game. So I'm saying this positively. Chicago got to the line 14 times. They were 10 of 14. Nets were 3 of 5. The Nets, and by the way, another really good sign here with no Nicholas Claxton. You use more Day'Ron Sharpe here. Dorian Finney-Smith did not do as much rebounding as I thought he would, but the guards, the other players have done a nice job on gang rebounding, but they narrowly lost the rebound battle 42-39, and they're still doing the other things that matter a ton here. They are now on their 5th consecutive game. Franchise record is 84-85 with 6 consecutive games to start the season of 25 assists or more. They had 32 in this game. They limited their turnovers at just 11, and they got out there with 46 points in the paint. They won that battle against Chicago. Like the fact that there are both stats that say, oof, you didn't get to the line hardly at all here. That could be troubling. Oh, you narrowly lost this battle, right? You got outshot, all these things. Yep. And you still got the win. Like, there are going to be nights like this, and you do have to find ways to manufacture success. And in a third quarter, if I was going to have a doubt about this one, it's when it looked like the Nets were shooting 20% from the field in the third quarter and just kind of grinding to an offensive halt. I had real reservations that they'd be able to get themselves back up and going. But again, this team so far early in this year shows that we are going to grind with you for 48 minutes. And if you take a few possessions off, we will sneak our way back into a ball game.
You can't take any possession. You can't, like, with this Nets team, you actually can't take any of it off. Like, one of the main reasons actually that their bench so good is their bench is killing. Like, that Lonnie Walker unit,
Yep.
and Day'Ron Sharpe, like, their bench is crushing other teams right now.
33-25 tonight as well. One of the smaller advantages, but still +8 against the Chicago bench.
Because again, if I go down this plus minus again, I skipped Armani Brooks because Armani Brooks is that crazy +30. But it was like Lonnie Walker is 1, Day'Ron Sharpe 2, Brooks is 3, Dinwiddie's 4, Watford's 5, Dennis Smith is 6. Like, those are the guys that on the season, and those are the only guys on the season that are positive in the plus minus department. Cam Thomas is +2. Everyone else is negative. Now, again, some of that comes from like early on in the season when they were still working things out. But just think about that. The other guys on the team, the starters on the season, are all negative. So it's really actually is the bench that's kept them in these games / won them the game.
Yeah.
Right. Like that. And
Spencer Dinwiddie is the only starter in the Nets that was plus in plus minus. The other 3 guys, there's 4 guys.
Cam is plus. For tonight. Yeah,
just for tonight. For tonight.
I'm saying for the season, though.
I know.
For the season.
Yeah,
Dorian Finney-Smith's a -31 for the season. Mikal's -24. Ben Simmons is -21. Nick Claxton, I mean, played no minutes, but like -12. Like, all their starters are in the negative for the season. It's the bench that's murdered other teams and kept them around long enough for them to be able to close. It's like we're probably actually not talking about it enough. On with how good it's been.
Injuries, guys coming out of the lineup. The one thing that you and I have said consistently is that whoever is in the second unit for the Nets is typically better than your second unit. Now, the starting unit, it kind of has to grind, right? We know most nights you're going to step on the court and there's going to be a superstar on the other team, or multiple, or just players that are regarded in that. And quite frankly, different points of their career. But Levine, DeRozan, they combined for 48 tonight. Guess what? Nets, sum of our parts. That's how we're going to beat you. When you guys go off the court, we're going to win those minutes, and then we're going to look for some clutch opportunities late. I don't know anything else to say, man. It's absolutely awesome. Nets get up to 3-2 on the season. They get the all-important NBA Cup first win in the group stage. 109-107, man. Excellent. Just excellent.
All right. We're going to hang around here. We got a lot of people on YouTube. If you have a question you want to throw out there, put at Locked On Nets. I started 1 or 2 things here that I just picked off stray comments as we were going. But we'll close out the regular episode here, and then we'll just take some questions as we go into the night. And if you want us to go crazy about the red cord again, we can after my eyes haven't recovered. I actually was Well, we'll close
It's like
it. And
someone
we're
set
not
a
even,
flash off and then I tried to watch a basketball game.
I realized actually coming out of halftime that I readjusted to what natural light looked like, and then went back to the screen, and I was like, oh God, I was like, what is this? I even showed my kid who just couldn't care less about basketball, and I showed
Hey, listen.
and I showed her, and even she was appalled by it.
Have a disgusting looking court, lose a basketball game. That's the way it works. Good luck, Chicago. We'll be back next time talking all things Brooklyn Nets basketball. Oh, a little post podcast. As Doug said, man, shout out to everybody. As we always say, love doing the lives, love seeing everybody in here. You know what? One thing I want to get back to before you hit these ones, you mentioned it, and I'll acknowledge it. This is the post podcast. I was probably talking like 40% too fast throughout that entire episode. I'm juiced up. But when you mentioned Cam Thomas, he had that defensive sequence where he kept himself straight up in front of DeRozan on one possession. And I don't forget the other mark the other time, but he's shown significant improvement of just knowing where he needs to be and doing enough. If you think back to last season or his first year, if you think about having absolute defensive dumpsters like Patty Mills, that doesn't exist anymore on this team right now. Cam Thomas is your biggest, quote, liability on the defensive end, but it is leaps and bounds better than what the Nets were putting out there in years past.
I think it's just the expectation. I like the expectation that, he doesn't need to be, the only offensive player. Like, remember, like when he was playing before, he was playing like, we joked before about the player that he had played the most minutes with in his career. Right? Do you remember who it was? You remember? Like it was Patty Mills. Cam Thomas has been paired with Patty Mills.
Oh, they
like how could anyone? How could you ever? Of course, you're gonna be a train wreck on defense when those two guys are together. But now that it's sort of one of those things where
I just picture the two of them in the defensive backcourt.
It's
like,
a joke.
What are we talking about?
It's a joke. It's terrible. It's malpractice, frankly. And so of course it's going to be impossible to look good on defense there. Like everyone's going to look bad on defense if those two are. That's going to be like your major pairing. But now that he can be like, you can be the worst defender on your team and still be okay. As long as, because like really at that point, a lot of the defense is just effort and not making just monumental boneheaded mistakes. And actually, most of the mistakes that a guard like him could make would just be like losing your mark. And that's just effort. Like, and that's just effort. And so if that's going to be the case, and you're just going to be dialed in enough and not get back cut on and like just try to stay in front of someone when you get the switch because the guys are trying to switch onto you, like that's fine. That's fine. And I think that we're seeing that from him, and it's been more than enough. He hasn't had any. I think like the first game, there was some clear like defensive issues. Tonight, it didn't jump off the page, but there was, like I said before, it was at least 2 or 3 times. Definitely two times where I was like, nice job. Nice job.
And he had a block. He had a block in the lane. He blocked that shot, which by the way, I remember looking that up over on craftednba.com that like he does do a nice job impacting shooters going towards the basket because he has a nice base to him. He has a little bit of meat to him so he can stay physical and in front of a player like that. Let's get to this first one here, Doug. You started up coming in there from JJ. Mikal has yet to hit a 30-point game. Yeah, that's awesome. Nets are 3-2, and Mikal Bridges doesn't need to score 30 points for them to win games. Like that's great.
And the efficiency for him, I continue to say, is like just steady hand with this thing when it comes to the shooting. Like it'll come around. Like it started to come around tonight. I think he was fine. 8 for 17 from the field, only gets to the line twice, 3 for 8. It's like not bad. He just didn't need to take a ton of shots. There will be nights where they'll probably have to rely on him a little bit more. They haven't had to do it, and they've won sort of in spite of him not playing up to this crazy high usage and efficiency that he had last season. And that's good. Like that's a good thing. And I don't think, whether it's the FIBA thing where he's tired or they just don't need him to do all the heavy lifting in this offense. I think it's probably a combo deal, probably more the latter. I think, you have to feel probably pretty encouraged that he hasn't been the version of himself from last year. And the Nets are still above 500 with a positive point differential on the season. Like that's,
listen, we want to take the next, big step and be, whatever, 25 point score. It's all good. But if he functions within this, and I think really more than anything, it's, you said it, like the consistency of his game. That's really it. There's been, the last game against Miami, there's some ball handling issues there. Tonight, he misses the little bunny there from Ben Simmons. He finds him at the basket all alone. It's these little things like that. Like, hey, you want to make those little clutch moments. But outside of that, he is going to be a consistent player. Will it be closer to 20 than the 30 points a night? Yes. And again, when you have these guys playing around him like that, and the way Ben is playing, that can be a good thing. I'm going to double down on both of these because you had starred one. I'll throw this one real quickly. What are your guys' thoughts about potential trades now? You also then had this one from Jonathan, frequent flyer with us. Nets' goals at the trade deadline should be to lengthen their depth more. Could an Andre Drummond or Alex Caruso package be appealing? I'll let you respond to this first.
I just saw Drummond's name. I saw Drummond's name, and I was wanted to bring it up because I wanted to laugh about it. Because I saw Drummond come onto the court tonight, and I was like, don't
Stop
need him.
dreaming these little dreams. Stop dreaming.
I just don't think the Nets are going to make these. I just don't think the Nets are going to end up making these moves. I still think they're going to be sellers, to some degree, or like mini sellers, like soft sellers or something like that, where they trade a little bit of this depth away. That would be the smart thing to do. Like if the depth maintains like we think it's going to, or like these guys keep playing like this, you should definitely try to get some assets back for these guys. Like these guys could have really, really good value, and the Nets, I think, still need to be thinking about the future. And so I still think they'll be sellers, but good news. Like so many guys are playing well. I think they're going to be in an interesting position at the trade deadline.
Yeah, and I don't think like you say about Jonathan mentioned they're lengthening the depth. You can't. I mean, you keep getting deeper. It's only through injuries that some of these guys are playing right now. You can't have 20 guys on your bench. I think they have a good collection of players, and I think what will inform it. Although my initial reaction, my knee-jerk reaction was you trade nobody, you extend everybody, 5-year contracts, we never back down, tongue in cheek. But I would say you wait to see about some of these other guys, right? Trendon Watford, you wait to see when Dariq Whitehead, he's supposed to get healthy and play this year. That's what they've told us at least. So you wait to see how that unfolds, and then that can dictate some of these veteran guys that are playing above them and are certainly going to have value for contending teams.
Yeah, and I look, we're a ways off from that, so I think we're fine to just like enjoy the ride as it goes here.
That's really my sentiment, yeah.
And it all means good things, right? Because like if the guys play well, then they're going to have value. We know this isn't a championship team. Like, if we think that like they're going to continue to sort of build assets to try to get another superstar, you try to retain the guys you think that will help you in the future, and you try to sell off the guys that you think will be able to help you get a superstar, right? Because that still is the name of the game. It will be funny actually what our feeling is tomorrow night after they play the Celtics, because the Celtics, go ahead.
I'll make the note about that. I didn't say it on the podcast. Winning this game was also critical because of that. The Nets are going to play the Celtics tomorrow night, and the Celtics are an absolute juggernaut this season. Like they are going to be a problem for everybody, let alone a team like the Nets who do not have these pure superstars necessarily on their roster to go toe-to-toe night in, night out. But you're going to play them, and then you're also going to turn back around and you're going to have as I lose track of it, you're going to have the Milwaukee Bucks after that. Then you're going to get the Celtics, the Clippers, and then the Celtics again. So these next 4 games are going to be brutal. Like we may look up and this team may be 3-6 in the blink of an eye. And that's okay, because these are big tests and these are hard teams to play against, but it does make games like this matter. The Nets are like showcasing, hey, we should be able to beat these mid-tier teams, these 6 to 8 seed kind of teams. That's what matters here for the Nets.
Yeah, good call. They need to pick off the teams that are in the same tier as them, right?
Yep.
Or below. And to beat, so that's why like the Heat win is important. This bolt like that. That's sort of, I mean the Heat are better, but these are the kind of teams that they should be beating to have a hope for the season of like, staying over 500. Like these are the critical games. Like you said, the Celtics are amazing so far. I mean, it's only a few games, but it tracks like sort of like what they put together on paper before the season. And it might actually be even better. I mean, they're 4-0 and they've just crushed teams. so far. They put up 155 against the Pacers without Halliburton the other night. They put up 126 in the Wizards. Now they played the Heat. They killed the Heat. Well, they beat the Heat by 8 and they, scraped by the Knicks. But like, we'll see. It'll be fun. I mean, oh my God, if they beat if the Nets beat them, you're telling me off on the podcast. I'm not sure what we'll do. My head might explode.
Be broadcasting live from the shower. The thing about that's it. I lost my point altogether. Oh no, I found it back. Did you see the highlights from the Celtics Wizards game with Jordan Poole? Like it was just those couple of things, like Jordan Poole going off glass to Kuzma when they're down to bring the deficit to 19. But then also Jordan Poole doing his little dance around. This isn't even about him, but he dances around and goes, I'm backing it out to the 3-pointer. And Porzingis is like, yeah, great, man. I'll just step out there and slap that.
The one, it was like a 1-on-3 fast break. And then he slowed it down, turned around and then he's just such
And
a
like
tank
did a
commander.
little shimmy shake out there on the perimeter. Like it was
He's a tank commander. He's like the exact guy you want on your
Oh.
team when you want to lose all your games. Like he'll take a lot of shots. He'll be super inefficient. He had another one too, where he was in the corner and he heaved one over a defender and he did the turnaround midair like he had made it and it just clanked off the back of the rim.
It's just too
awesome.
good, man. So always good to see some fun things happen on the NBA. This one from Jared, we did mention, I said about how the Nets could have been, if not for what went wrong, nothing went wrong. They played the Cavaliers, a very good team, and they played the Dallas Mavericks, a very good team. Go look at where they are in the Western Conference right now. It was a Luka. I mean, I think he put a blindfold on and acted like he was throwing like a pin the tail on the donkey.
He had 12 points worth of step back threes, and then he banked one over a double team where they had shut him down all the way to the end of the shot clock. I don't know. It's in Dallas.
Right.
Like, what are you going to do?
Nothing.
That game was a coin flip at the end. They lost 2 coin flips and they won this coin flip, right? Like that's just kind of where sometimes that's the whole story with the NBA.
No, 100%. So yeah, nothing really went wrong with that there. And again, really, I think more than anything, when I brought that up about, hey, you're these 2 moments away, a dagger triple from Mitchell, and he's known to do that, but being those 2 moments away from maybe winning those games again, I'll just reiterate, it would be nice to have had those given where the schedule goes here over the next handful of games, right? Like, and I think everyone just needs to prepare for some of these losses and also remind yourself, though, that these first 5 games tell you that this team, I think we would not have expected, hey, we may look at chunks of the schedule here and say the Nets could win 4 out of 5. They could win 5 out of 7, depending on how the schedule breaks down. I didn't think that coming into the season. I thought scrapping every game, trying to battle, getting a couple here, and going through some difficult chunks and stretches when you play some of the best teams in the league.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're gonna end up seeing. The fact that they can even stay with these teams and stay close and be really, really competitive is just such a good news. I mean, again, we'll see a real test here against Boston. But I expect them to play hard. They're going to have all kinds of matchup problems. Boston's going to give them absolute hell on defense. And that will be interesting to see because they have guys who can just take away the stuff they could really take away the stuff the Nets want to do.
My mini preview at a very, very high level would be picture the third quarter against Chicago tonight, but then put Boston's offense on the court, right? Like if you go into that lull where you shoot 20% from the field, that there's going to be a lead there that grows to 15, that grows to a pretty sizable number. And I don't think you'll be able to manufacture your way necessarily back into the game. But I do expect the Nets to play them tough early and to try to make things difficult, especially defensively. The one thing we probably haven't seen is a game where the Nets go, hey, it's defense first for 48. Like, we're just going to grind this thing down on that end of the floor. I do want to see them showcase that, and that'll be a fun test for them, certainly. Good reminder here. Lost to Dallas by 5, lost to Cleveland by 1, and then you had that game against Charlotte winning by 12 there. Like, the Nets have played only tight games. That's what they do. They play tight games, and they've won more than they've lost those tight games.
Real quick here. This is gonna be an interesting thing. What I'm curious is what's gonna happen here when Claxton comes back.
Some people were asking this over on Twitter as well. Like, what do you do with Claxton?
It's really hard to change the starting lineup now. From what it's been, it's tough to lose a starting position by just getting hurt. And I get that there's egos here, and you have to maintain a locker room, and people feel like they should be in certain positions.
Well, Dorian's going to go down too, right? I mean, you can make a case he shouldn't be. You can make a case he should be starting with the way he's played.
I'm pretty sure that the 5-man. I'll look this up. The 5-man going into this game, and they were really plus for the first quarter. It's not that many minutes, but like that, their starting lineup for tonight has played when those 5 are together. Like those 5 have, I'm pretty sure, played like a net positive, like fully net positive.
Spencer wasn't there because he missed a couple of games too.
Yeah, but they had played like 20 minutes before this game, and this just hasn't. The one site I used to kind of aggregate this hasn't updated for tonight's game. But I looked at this, and it was like 20 minutes, and then they played another like 6 of really positive stuff in the Bulls and against the Bulls tonight. So that unit, it's going to be like 25 to 30 minutes or something like that. It's going to look, the numbers are going to look really, really positive. And so Yeah, we'll see what
I think
happens.
you have to be fine with it probably. You mentioned this going back to it, like, hey, is it the ceremonial, everyone's in the lineup, the original starting five, and then you break that up very quickly early in a game. I think what you don't want to lose is how fluid the offense has looked for stretches with Ben Simmons running things and the floor spacing and all the things that through no fault of his own, just what his skill set is, Nick Claxton's going to bog down a little bit. And I had talked about this. What's the best version of these lineups? Claxton with Spencer Dinwiddie in the second unit, that can, as you blend him over, we talked about him earlier, that can work really well. This is where the second unit, like Day'Ron Sharpe, won't be able to play. If you're going to take Claxton and move him away from Ben Simmons, it's going to be really hard to use Day'Ron Sharpe and value his rebounding. This is where a Trendon Watford has to come into play, a Dennis Smith Jr. in the second unit, and then maybe it is these Lonnie Walker kind of guys, but you need to somehow still manufacture enough offensive ability and then make it that maybe your second unit gets kind of defensively aggressive for big stretches if you can have the right combination of guys. And Dorian Finney-Smith would go to that category too, because Cameron Johnson's going into the starting unit when he's back.
Oh, yeah. And I think Claxton will too. I think they'll go back to what the original thought of the starting lineup would be, at least for a short period of time. I think like Jacques Vaughn's probably gotten a little lucky in this sense to not have to make too many tough decisions about these guys. Like that time will come to an end at some point. You hope, because that means everyone's getting healthy. Right now he's running units that sort of just like make sense for what they have, but these will be tough. These are kind of sort of existential questions about the team going forward too, because if they feel like they have to make a change, again, it's like really tough to think about breaking up this current starting unit, which I think has shown to be pretty good together.
Yeah.
And maybe Claxton doesn't, maybe Cam Johnson can slot in there, a little easier, but I like having Dorian Finney-Smith's size and defensive versatility there too. So I don't know. It's not a knock on any of these guys. It's just going to be tough.
We'll go into it a layer deeper. At some point here, we'll get the sample size when these guys come back. But if it didn't matter about the original starting rotation, whatever, and like you said, hey, this unit has played well together, you could, like, if you thought about a Dennis Smith Jr., Cameron Johnson, right, Nicholas Claxton based second unit, like you can see a version of it where you could have something where maybe you actually maximize Cameron Johnson's offensive value by not being in the starting unit, where Dorian Finney-Smith is waiting for those threes. That's a big part of Cameron Johnson too. But like I can see them. If you took away all the contracts and all the expectations, that's my original premise from a few weeks ago or a couple weeks ago was just tell me what the best versions of these lineups are. Like take away everyone's accolades and whatever. How do you make the best collection of units? And if you do that, this is where you can make a very strong case for it to be uniquely different than what we thought it was coming in.
I mean, what should for sure happen is like the depth thing that they have now should continue even with guys getting healthy, because they should be able to run different combinations that destroy other teams' second units. Again, their top five aren't the best, but it gets a lot closer for a regular season team when you look at their top 10. Mm-hmm. And when every team is going to have to take their best players off the court at times, the Nets 10, it really starts picking up. It really starts picking up the difference. Now, built for the playoffs, when every team's starting to play their best guys 40 minutes. No, they're not built that way right now. Yeah. I don't think at all. I don't think that's even a hot take. We saw that like in the Sixers, series to the degree. It's like, oh, hey, guess what happens when they play Embiid a lot of minutes? It's hard. Right? Like it's really tough. And that's what happens in the playoffs. And if you don't have really, really, really top end talent at that point, that's like sort of where the equation starts to flip. But for now, when these teams are going to rest guys or just like, injuries are going to crop up or they're just going to run their guy, the starter's going to play 33, 34 minutes. Yeah, the Nets, the 50 or 60 minutes that they can get out of their bench guys, like they can make up a huge ground. We talked about this before about like how they've kind of won a lot of these games. And that's going to only get better seemingly as they get healthier. But, again, not a recipe for playoff success, but definitely a recipe for regular season success to get up over their 37.5 over under for wins. I will take it, buddy. Like we want to get there.
We'll enjoy that. I'll get to feel a little bit more bullish about saying 43 and 39 for my prediction. Reach out on a limb there, and sometimes you find a branch. I think just the last note on that is I think Dorian Finney-Smith. I think Spencer Dinwiddie might actually end up being the most logical guy because you want to put Cam Thomas in the starting lineup and you need ball handling. Like that's just, I think, going to be a part of this equation as well. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. If we're considering the idea, and it's always hard for us to peel ourselves away from this, but if we're considering the idea of wrapping things up, a couple of just things I want to throw out here. Dorian Finney-Smith scored a season high and a Nets career high, 21 points, and matched his Nets career high with 5 3-pointers tonight. That's a nice one for him. The Brooklyn Nets have also tallied 21 fast break points and now have scored 20-plus fast break points in all five games this season. Since 1996-97, the first time that the fast break points were tracked, this is the longest streak for the Brooklyn Nets in their franchise's history. Like, the things that they are doing, and we've done this like every single game, I feel like you mention a little accolade here, a little note there. This team is just going to do something I think pretty fun and pretty special to watch for fans. So that's all I could ask for, man. Couldn't be any more.
And we're all going to keep this front of mind when we come in here. If we come in here tomorrow night and they got trounced by the Celtics in the back-to-back. Now, if they win, then we're starting to pop. We're starting to pop championship champagne.
You want to watch out, right?
Yeah. We're going to be on one. If they
it's
lose,
right in our podcast as the Chicago Bulls court was tonight.
If they lose, I still can't get over the court. Just what a travesty.
It was like the Red Wedding from Game of Thrones.
It really was a horror movie. I just don't know who approved it. Like, it's so bad. Anyway, if they lose, what we're going to do is we're going to come in here and say, can you guys believe we're 3-3? Like, this is like, this is great. So this is how you hedge. This is how you emotionally hedge before you even get into the nitty gritty on this stuff. It's like, you're like, hey, we're happy to be 3-3 and the Celtics are awesome. But if they win, I mean, then we go to real irrational town. And we start thinking about all the great scenarios that can happen. It's okay, but this is why you pre-plan for this stuff, so you can kind of like you can know where you're going
on a back-to-back nonetheless. All right, I think we're ready to close this one out. Again, when you have almost 260 people in the room, it is borderline impossible. There's a world where I just get a cup of coffee going and I stay on till dawn because that's what I'm about. But I genuinely, and I know Doug does too, we appreciate everybody that comes in here, the frequent flyers we see in the comments on YouTube, people that come in for just the YouTube lives on these post games, get in on the videos, get in on the comments, follow us over on Twitter at Doug Norrie and at Adam Armbrecht and at Locked On Nets. And a reminder that we do the exclusive game day previews. Those go up just on the podcast. We have committed ourselves to being overly committed to the Brooklyn Nets this season. So you're going to want to be a part of it and just follow us along, man. I by the way, I just ran out of steam. There it was. You just watched me peter to an end.
All right. Adam did a great job there. We're going to get out of here. Much appreciated everyone that jumped in. Just to reiterate what Adam was saying, we will probably jump back in here for a Celtics post game tomorrow night. We'll see about that one. But if you follow us on Twitter or you follow on Subtext, then you'll know, because we'll just let everyone know on one of those two places if we're going to jump in live. Let me put it this way: win 100%, we'll be there. Loss, we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. You got to take a night here and there. Oh yeah, much appreciate everyone that jumped in here. That's in the comments too. We will be back again, hopefully tomorrow night, talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball. Basketball. Brooklyn Nets win. Basketball.